So this is part 2 of the series of destruction of the European Jew. This part 2 is going to further be broken up into subsections. So it's going to be 2.5, 2.5.0, 2.7.5. There's just so much information, I just couldn't condense it. So work with me. Have some patience. I won't release it all in one day. I'll do it like, you know, a little bit every day. So look out for the rest of the parts as the days goes on. I'm getting a lot of comments about who are the Jews. Look. That's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to see the signs of the Holocaust, to see what happened beforehand, so that we can prepare. It doesn't matter who they are, who their bloodline is, who they really are. Irrelevant, okay, in this particular situation. Just pay attention to the steps and the warning signs that they missed out on, that we now have the benefit of hindsight looking at it, especially when our elders are telling us repeatedly that this reminds them of Nazi Germany. That is the point. These videos are my attempt to be hyper-focused on those specific points alone. What happened beforehand? How can we spot these signs?
Since 1933, German Jews had been excluded from all professions, robbed of their worldly goods, and forbidden to marry non-Jews. But that was not enough. Nazi Germany wanted to get rid of all its Jews. Over the last 5 years, tens of thousands of them had already left, but the aim was to expel them all. Total war against them now began, and Himmler had all the powers necessary to execute it.
There were already concentration camps for non-Jews. Dachau had been there since 1933. A whole network of camps was being developed.
Eliminating civil rights, civil liberties, and any possibility of moral restraint.
The truth is, there weren't many people left to protest. The Social Democrats were in the concentration camps. The Communists had been thrown out. Who could oppose them?
The first stage in German policy was one of segregation within Germany, and then a second phase, which began in 1938, was a policy of expulsion. They began trying to push out foreign Jews.
So in 1938, Germany started deporting foreign-born Jews out of Germany. So Jews that were not born in Germany, they started deporting them. And the neighboring country is Poland. So Poland closed their borders. So then the Jewish people started making like camps in between the borders. So only one person who lived in France heard about this and got so upset about, you know, what was going on with his parents that he decided to fight back. So he ended up killing a German Nazi important person in the military that came to Paris. He ended up killing him while he was there in Paris. But because he was by himself, and no one else had his back, and there wasn't a team behind him, they weren't on code, they were able to use this as propaganda to further, to further their campaign of propaganda against the Jewish people.
Shot by this young Jew, Hermann Grunspan.
Goebbels reacted violently to Grinspan's arrest. He saw it as the perfect pretext for action.
Unusually, Hitler left the meeting without giving a speech, simply saying, just leave it to the paramilitaries. This so-called spontaneous explosion of anger from the people was designed to terrorize the Jewish population and force them to leave Germany.
And Goebbels said to Hitler on the way to this, effectively, we should let should we let the demonstrations, i.e. the pogroms, run? They were already starting locally up and down the place. And Hitler gave his agreement to that and said, yes, let the demonstrations continue.
Ja, am Morgen bin ich dann zurück.
I went back to our apartment, and there was broken glass everywhere.
Und ich hörte zum ersten Mal den
And that's the first time I heard the phrase Kristallnacht. The first time I heard it.
In the cities, a lot of people saw what happened. They were woken up in the night by the noise of breaking windows and fires.
Es gebrannt hat.
Hundreds of synagogues were sacked, pillaged, or burnt. The firemen were ordered to let them burn. Jewish cemeteries were profaned. This pogrom was particularly violent in Berlin and Vienna, which had the largest Jewish populations. In despair at the violence and the destruction of their homes, many Jews, sometimes entire families, took their own lives.
So you trying to tell me they would rather commit suicide than take up arms and fight, and at least, if nothing else, die trying? Sapase.
Als 12 war, hat mein Vater sich auch angeguckt, die Scherben vom...
When he was 12, my father saw all the damage from the November pogrom in our little town. He lived out of town, but he went in the next day with his friends to see what had gone on. A lot of people did. Hardly anybody said anything. Some of them were happy about it and glad that violence had broken out against the Jews. Some of them even took part in it. Other people were horrified and ashamed.
Nobody protested, nobody intervened, and there was very little real help.
Ich denke, dass die SA es für nötig hielt, in den kleineren Orten.
In the little villages, they didn't ask the locals to loot and burn the synagogues. They brought in people from the next village. They got them drunk to do it. They weren't sure anyone would do that to their own neighbors.
Dass die Leute das machen gegen ihre eigenen Nachbarn.
Jewish men aged 16 to 60 were arrested and 7,000 Jewish stores were looted and burned and ransacked. And that, of course, then led to the arrest of around 20 to 30,000 Jews and their internment for short periods, but horrific periods, in concentration camps.
You see, by this time, they had conditioned the German people to turn a blind eye to what any kind of suffering that was happening to the Jewish people. Okay. They locked up all the people that were, strong enough to oppose the Nazi party. They had locked them all up and put them in concentration camps. So the only people who are left are the people that doesn't really care. Another thing that I thought was interesting was the part where they had to bring in people to actually execute the violence on the Jewish people, because the Nazi party did not want to depend on the Germans to be able to attack their neighbors. But they knew that they'd given them enough propaganda that they wouldn't do anything about it, that they wouldn't fight back, they wouldn't fight for the Jewish people. They would just sit back and allow these strangers to come into their neighborhoods and beat up their neighbors. Does that sound, at this point, the American society, and which is kind of a reflection of the global society as a whole, does not help us ever. You don't have to bring someone in to do something to us. Our neighbors are doing things to us.
A grandfather shot and killed on his front porch while holding his grandson. 1 week later, still no charges in Fort Worth, and his family is demanding accountability. They spoke to WFAA's Tiffany Liu.
And I was just wondering why.
It's the same question.
Why it happened.
Replaying what happened last Monday.
I don't think the Fort Worth PD is holding anyone accountable for it.
Kevin Battle II is on the phone with us from Indiana, but he was just in Fort Worth for spring break when his dad was shot and killed.
I hear a gunshot, So I quickly run to my dad's front door, and then I see the second gunshot hit my dad in the back of the head, and I see my dad drop face down to the ground.
He says Kevin Battle Sr. and his 5-year-old went to talk to the neighbor after something was said.
Buddy's what he calls my dad, or his grandfather, and he said he shot and killed my buddy.
The little boy saw a man shoot his grandfather twice on their shared front porch.
He was 57 years old. He would have been 58 May 10th.
So far, police confirmed there was a possible dispute between neighbors. One person is dead, and homicide is investigating the case. But a week later, there are still no updates. The concern now is transparency.
One side is being protected and the other side isn't.
Dr. Rick Wallace is helping out the family, and he wants the facts.
If it's something that justifies the shooting, then it shouldn't be that difficult to pull out. But simply taking a man's word for it when you have a man with a bullet to the back of his head.
He says Battle's children deserve answers, especially his grandson who witnessed the scene.
He loved his grandkids to death.
It was supposed to be a carefree family vacation. They never thought it would be the last.
He got to see his grandsons, and we got to spend time together.
In Fort Worth,
Kristallnacht caused a certain indignation in Germany, not because they liked the Jews, but mainly because it was a shock to the German sense of social order.
When there was so much destruction in Germany, of course the Jews were not responsible for that, but Goering used that as a way, so to speak, to compensate for the effects of the Reichskristallnacht pogrom with the imposition of the punitive tax. That's a tax on every Jew as a response against the Jews, but he still made the Jews pay for the damage.
The Roma newspaper was particularly virulent with its anti-Jewish propaganda. All the old cliches were there in its cartoons, on every page. It was really the most abject anti-Semitism of the most degrading kind.
This journal, published by Julius Streicher in Nuremberg, is an abominable sewer of the worst kind of anti-Semitic cliches. Jews eating and sacrificing children, trafficking white slaves, lustful, rapists, thieves, all the cliches are there.
The Jews are the enemy, the Jews are dangerous, the Jews can appear in any way, they disguise themselves, they're very cunning.
Now, damn it if them stereotypes don't sound familiar. They don't even change the stereotypes around. The only thing that's different is the fact that we can't hide. They were saying how they felt that the Jewish people were very cunning and that they could hide. That's the only difference. Think about that.
Was a decisive step, but at the time the decision still hadn't been taken to exterminate the Jews.
There was a meeting on the 12th of November, 2 days after Kristallnacht. A very important meeting, certainly the most important meeting ever held about the Jewish question. Apart from Hitler, the whole elite of the Third Reich was there. Goering, and of course Heydrich, who represented the SS. And that's where we hear Goering say, but we can't let the Jews starve. And Heydrich replies, we'll have to decide whether we want this or not. Goering couldn't yet imagine leaving the Jews to die, but Heydrich said, it's a decision we'll have to take.
That was part 1 of the 4-part subsection of part 2 of Destruction of the European Jew. I hope you guys are enjoying. So now with IGTV, I can add links to all of my sources. So always look in the comments. You will find links to my sources. Facebook, you will find links to my sources. YouTube, look in the description. You can also find links to all my sources there as well. I like to add those in case you guys want to do any further research, which I heard you guys have been doing. I'm so impressed.